What do you think it would be like to have a conversation with Jesus in heaven? How might our perspectives on life change if we knew that we had a limited amount of time left to live? Hello everyone and welcome to our channel, where we share mind-blown near-death experiences stories all over the world. Today's story about Mark, who went to the afterlife, then saw his beloved grandfather and this man. Lay back, relax and let's begin. In the early 2000s, a man named Mark was a successful businessman who had always been fascinated by the mysteries of life and death. Despite his interest in spirituality, he considered himself a skeptic and had never been sure about the existence of an afterlife. However, that all changed one fateful day when he had a near-death experience that would change his life forever. It was a warm summer evening, and Mark had just finished a long day at work. He was driving home when he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. He tried to brush it off, thinking it was just indigestion, but the pain intensified and spread to his arms. Before he knew it, he was slumped over the steering wheel, unable to move. As he felt his consciousness slipping away, Mark felt a sense of fear and panic wash over him. He was scared that he was going to die and that he wouldn't see his wife and children again. However, as he took his last breath, he suddenly found himself outside of his body. Mark looked down at his physical body and realized that he was no longer bound by the physical constraints of his earthly form. He felt a sense of freedom and lightness that he had never experienced before. As he looked around, he saw that he was surrounded by a bright, white light that emanated a sense of peace and love. As he stood in this light, Mark realized that he was not alone. He felt the presence of a person standing next to him, but he couldn't make out who it was at first. As he looked closer, he saw that it was his grandfather who had passed away many years earlier. Mark was overjoyed to see his grandfather and felt a sense of relief that he wasn't alone in this strange new world. He embraced his grandfather and felt a sense of love and warmth that he had never felt before. They communicated telepathically, and his grandfather told him that he was there to guide him through this experience. As they walked together, Mark saw that they were surrounded by beautiful landscapes that he had never seen before. He saw mountains, valleys, and rivers that glimmered with light. He felt a sense of awe and wonder at the beauty of this new world. Mark's grandfather then told him that they were going to meet someone very important. Mark was confused and asked who this person was. His grandfather simply smiled and said that he would see for himself. As they continued walking, Mark began to feel a sense of trepidation. He wasn't sure what to expect and was anxious about who they were going to meet. As they turned a corner, Mark saw a figure in the distance. As they got closer, Mark saw that it was a man in white robes, with a kind and gentle face. Mark realized that he was in the presence of Jesus Christ. Mark was awestruck, and he fell to his knees in reverence. Jesus smiled and helped Mark to his feet. Mark was overwhelmed with emotion, and he felt tears streaming down his face. Jesus hugged him and told him that he was loved and that everything was going to be okay. As they talked, Mark felt a sense of peace and understanding that he had never experienced before. Jesus listened to Mark's fears and concerns, and he answered his questions with compassion and wisdom. Mark asked Jesus about the purpose of life and why we have to suffer. Jesus explained that life was a test, and that suffering was a necessary part of the human experience. He told Mark that he had a purpose in life, and that he needed to fulfill it. Mark had always struggled with feeling purposeless in his life, and this message from Jesus gave him a newfound sense of direction. As Mark and Jesus talked, time seemed to stand still. Mark felt as though he was in the presence of pure love and wisdom, and he never wanted the conversation to end. However, as their conversation drew to a close, Jesus told Mark that it was time for him to go back. Mark was saddened at the thought of leaving this beautiful place and Jesus, but he knew that he had to go back to his physical body. Jesus hugged him and told him that he would always be with him and that he would guide him on his journey. As Mark started to return to his body, he felt a sense of resistance. He didn't want to leave this place and go back to his earthly life. However, as he looked down at his physical body, he knew that he had to go back. Suddenly, Mark woke up in a hospital room. He was surrounded by doctors and nurses who were frantically trying to revive him. He felt a sense of confusion and disorientation, but he knew that he had just experienced something profound. Over the next few days, Mark struggled to come to terms with what had happened to him. He felt a sense of grief at having to leave the beautiful place he had visited, but he also felt a sense of purpose and direction in his life. He knew that he had a mission to fulfill and that he needed to make the most of his time on earth. In the years that followed, Mark dedicated his life to spreading the message of love and compassion that he had learned from his NDE. He became involved in charity work and spent time volunteering at hospices and hospitals. He also started a blog where he shared his story and offered hope to others who had experienced similar journeys. Mark never forgot the love and wisdom that he had experienced during his NDE. He knew that he had been given a second chance at life, and he was determined to make the most of it. He continued to feel the presence of Jesus and his grandfather in his life, and he knew that he was never truly alone. Thank you for watching this video. Kindly subscribe and turn on your notification to watch the latest video on our channel. God bless you all.